This week in Battlefield, we have potentially the biggest leaks in the last 4 or 5 years for the franchise, as Battlefield Labs gameplay has surfaced all over the internet from the recent playtest last week. DICE have released some great information themselves in a blog post detailing some outlines about recoil and movement and stuff like that, which we'll get into as well. And there is actually a brand new event in 2042 called War Machine that is starting this week as well, which is seemingly the biggest update the game has actually seen, probably since Season 7. If you guys are new around here and you're interested in seeing a weekly recap of everything that happened this week in Battlefield, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. There is plenty more content on the way. But with that being said, let's get stuck into another episode of This Week in Battlefield. Now, the first thing I want to mention is that it's worth keeping in mind half of this news is like a week old at this point. I literally posted the last episode of This Week in Battlefield, and then hours later, I'm talking literally like 2 to 3 hours after that video went live, we got the blog post that I'm about to go through, and then like within the next day or so, there was leaks all over Twitter and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. This isn't really like brand new news. The timing of that last episode was absolutely shocking. And something I wanted to pose to you guys is whether or not you'd prefer to actually see me push these videos back by a day, meaning that they'll go up on Sunday for me instead of Saturday, and that'll be probably Saturday for you guys. That means that I can potentially get all of this information in a more relevant time frame, but also the downside to that is that it means I'd have to be getting up and making these on a Saturday, which is a little bit less consistent. Most of the time I'm still working Saturdays anyway, but there is just the chance every now and then that I won't be home and stuff like that. So let me know what you prefer in the comments, if you prefer relevant updates where I push it back a day, or if you actually don't mind that it's sometimes, 4 or 5 days late, but it is still just that weekly recap of everything you need to know. So let me know in the comment section. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now, before we talk about the leaks, obviously the leaks are the big talking point this week. I'm actually going to go through the Twitter post that Battlefield did, just because I think that is really interesting, and yeah, I just want to spend the majority of the time talking about the leaks. So like I mentioned, just after I posted the last episode of this, Battlefield came out with an official post on Twitter titled Gunplay and Movement, and I'm actually just going to read through the entire thing because there is a lot of really good information in here that I'm pretty shocked we're actually getting this early in the lead up to the game. Getting into it, they said, "This is the first of our regular community updates to keep you informed about features we're testing in Battlefield Labs. Today we'll focus on elements of gunplay and movement." They then go into their design philosophy for the gunplay and the movement. So they said, "We've continually evolved our gunplay and movement mechanics throughout the Battlefield series. Now within Battlefield Labs, we're focused on refining the best elements from past titles, modernizing them, and validating if they feel fun and rewarding, and have the right balance between intuitive control and dynamic combat. We're designing the combat experience to ensure players of all skill levels can enjoy our gunplay and movement systems. Our goal is to offer gameplay that rewards skill with precise weapon feedback and movement options for veterans, while providing an intuitive experience for new players to learn and enjoy. For gunplay, we're exploring designs centered on helping you learn and develop skills and muscle memory through action, as weapons naturally signal their recoil direction. This feedback loop allows you to understand and adjust your aim, making it easier to handle different weapons. This system not only adds variety, but also enhances each weapon's unique feel and playstyle. Movement is also deeply integrated with gunplay, as your actions and targets are all part of the same cohesive combat experience. We aim to make movement both feel intuitive and rewarding to move within the world and during combat, but also when playing against someone using both the gunplay and movement systems to their maximum potential." There's then another title that says, "What's new and improved for gunplay and movement?" Initially, we'll test select but important areas that create the foundation required to create a fun and rewarding Battlefield combat experience. We're making focused efforts to create consistent and optimized millisecond to millisecond soldier combat, and we'll share some key examples of changes that will be available during our initial play sessions. We've reduced the time it takes for bullets to appear on your screen from when you press fire. This change decreases input delay, makes shooting feel more responsive, and helps you better track and hit moving targets. We're optimizing for a 60 hertz tick rate, which I'm just going to jump in here and say that is awesome to hear. That is something that we definitely need in this game. For those who don't really know what that means, it essentially just means the game will have a lot more responsiveness when it comes to like the lag side of things, the connection to the servers and stuff. 60 hertz tick rate is what the game definitely needs, and I'm glad to hear that they are optimizing for that. They continue on to say that they're doing that to ensure the game server more frequently updates the positions and actions for all players. This results in responsive gameplay across all platforms and inputs. You'll notice more precise shooting and movement, enhanced damage feedback, and more accurate representation of other players' positions and combat outcomes. We've adjusted the recoil system to make the different weapon types feel unique when firing them through enhancements to gunplay recoil, camera shakes, and firing settles. Each shot's recoil direction now matches its gameplay angle. The weapon visually stabilizes the more accurate your handling is, making you feel like you're actually firing and controlling it. To evolve the combat system, we've revamped animations and reintroduced movement features such as crouch sprint, combat dive, and landing roll, and added visual indicators to make it easier to understand when movements such as vaulting or leaning are possible. That is also really awesome to hear that crouch sprinting is officially confirmed to be coming back, and I'm personally a fan of the combat dive. I don't know if everyone will be. I feel like that's something that people are for some reason going to complain about, being it's too Call of Duty-esque or something like that. For me, I personally enjoy it as long as it's not too over the top, but I think having those things involved in the movement is personally a good thing. Now, they finished the post off by saying feedback and validation. At this stage, content within Battlefield Labs is pre-alpha, and play sessions take place within a closed dev environment focused on testing small chunks of a larger array of features. Some gameplay features are placeholder, work in progress, and with bugs and performance not being representative of the final experience. However, even during this early stage of development, you'll get a good sense of our new design approach. During our first play sessions, our teams will be validating the systems and stability for Battlefield Labs such as server performance, while participants will be able to familiarize themselves with what's next for Battlefield through testing the gunplay and the movement experience focused on, and then they've left some dot points here that say feel of the different weapon archetypes, improvements to aim and control, weapon balance and fun factor, look and feel of movement, moving and interacting with the map, and combat pacing. They finish off by saying, lastly, a reminder that while our play sessions will be within a closed environment and we can't invite everyone to every play session, we'll make sure to keep you informed on ongoing Battlefield Labs play sessions and learnings through these regular community updates. We'll be back in the coming weeks to talk more about our learnings from our first play sessions, as well as another feature-focused community update. So obviously that was a lot to go through. I feel like that is enough to be the entire video right there. There was a lot of really good information in there, and obviously it's easy to say good words and get us excited through stuff like that. We need the game to actually be good in order for that stuff to matter, but we will touch on that a little bit in a second once we get to the leaks. But in terms of just getting communication this early, like I said, we're potentially 8 to 9 months away still, and so the fact we're getting like pretty in-depth community updates on like what they're working on, what we can expect and stuff like that, I think that is really positive. One thing I hate is when companies like this will be really secretive about stuff and not communicate with the player base, because to me that comes across as though they're hiding stuff, as in they don't necessarily believe in it themselves. They think it's not quite up to scratch, so therefore they're going to keep it under wraps. The fact they're openly talking about this stuff before we've actually even seen official gameplay for this game is actually really exciting. So like they said at the end there will be more of these. I don't know how often they're going to be. I'd imagine at least once a month, maybe even a bit more than that. And so obviously when we get more of these, I will 100% be breaking them down here on the channel, because that stuff is always very, very exciting to me. Now, with that out of the way, obviously the key talking point this week is the leaks that have come from that Battlefield Labs playtest. Now, I'll firstly just say I'm not going to be showing the actual gameplay on this channel. I'm not risking a takedown. There is the chance that anyone who uploads that shit to YouTube is just going to get their channel deleted. I'm not going to be doing that. So I'll just straight up let you guys know from now moving forward, there will not be leaked gameplay on this channel. I'll talk about leaks. I'm fine talking about it, but I'm just not going to show it because I'm not risking this channel getting taken down or anything like that. So if you haven't seen the leaks that I'm talking about, just literally Google Battlefield Labs leaks and it'll show up everywhere. It's literally all over the internet. So go and watch some of that, and then hopefully this part will sort of make sense. Now, the key talking points from the leaks for me is that, one, it seems to confirm 4 classes. We've seen Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon from what I can tell in the gameplay. Keep in mind, a lot of it is like super low quality, so yeah, it's actually hard to read half of the shit in the HUD and stuff, but I'm pretty sure those are the classes. And yeah, there was a leak. Well, it's obviously not a leak now. It was more a rumor that there was going to be 7 classes, which I personally wasn't that big of a fan of. If it was done properly, it'd be fine, but that obviously has turned out to be incorrect, and it seems to be, unless they're going to add more in the future or something, it seems as though we are going to have 4 classes, which personally I'm happy with. I think 4, maybe 5 at most is the max that we should have. That is just the typical Battlefield formula, and it's always worked in the past, so there is literally no reason to change it. Now, it looks like most of the gameplay, I'm pretty sure all the gameplay I've seen, I don't know if they had other maps in there or not, but it seems like all of the gameplay that I saw was on that Egypt map. That is pretty much the map we saw in the initial little like 10 seconds of gameplay in the Battlefield Labs like trailer. I've got to say the map looked really cool. It looked a lot smaller than I expected. Obviously it's hard to tell without me being in there playing it, but looking at some of the overhead when the player was dying and then they go to the spawn menu, it looked smaller than I actually expected, which I definitely prefer the smaller maps. Not obviously like Call of Duty level small, but just more Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 type maps. This definitely seemed a lot more in line with that. Obviously they're not all going to be like that, but yeah, I definitely liked the look of it. I've also got to say the destruction looked insane. I know that they had already kind of shown that off in the little 10-second trailer thing, but man, it looked really, really good to see it actually in game. Obviously it looked a little bit buggy at times, but this is 8 to 9 months out from launch, so I'm not going to roast them for that. It looked awesome. I don't know if every building can be blown up like we've seen in that gameplay, but it definitely looked pretty insane. And I've got to say, even though I just mentioned some bugs, it looks like it was in a pretty decent state when you actually consider we are maybe 8 or 9 months out. This is pre-alpha gameplay, like this isn't even in the alpha yet, and it looked decent. It looked probably better than the 2042 launch, to be honest, which realistically isn't even saying that much, but I think that's a good sign. I think it looked less buggy and stuff than I was probably expecting, albeit the gameplay that I've seen all over the place is seemingly from one player, and that player, no offense to that guy, he's an absolute NPC. I don't know if it's his first shooter ever or what. He was just walking around getting killed over and over again. So I don't know if maybe there's more bugs once people actually start playing the game rather than just doing a walking simulator. I'm not too sure, but most of the gameplay I saw from that guy, he was just not good. So I don't know how people like that get into these playtests, but yeah, hopefully they don't cater too much to the genuine NPC audience, because that is not what most Battlefield players are. But I'm sure there was definitely plenty of good players involved as well. The last thing I wanted to mention when it comes to the leaks is that so far the feedback seems really, really positive. I haven't really seen anyone saying like, oh, this looks terrible. Everyone seems to be saying, damn, this actually looks pretty good. I've seen a few complaints here and there. Most of it seems like it's coming from like people who just don't play Battlefield. They're saying, oh, the movement looks slow and clunky. I feel like that stuff's coming from COD players. I think over the last few years, especially with Black Ops 6 now, like COD players have got this over the top expectation for movement that it needs to be fucking brain rot simulator. It's not like that in Battlefield, and it never should be. 2042 definitely leaned into that a bit more, and I don't think anyone liked that. And that's coming from me, who I do enjoy fast-paced movement and the sort of outplay potential that involves, but I don't want that in Battlefield. I want grounded gameplay. I want it to feel good and smooth and fluid, but you can do that while it also feels realistic as well. I don't want people slide cancelling around like a bunch of freaking zoo animals. That is just not what Battlefield should be, and that's really the only complaint I've seen about this, is that people are saying, oh, it looks a bit slower than I expected and stuff. To me it didn't. To me it looked pretty damn chaotic. It looked very much like Battlefield. So the feedback seems very positive so far, and I'm actually kind of wondering if that's why they haven't really taken down the gameplay. Apparently initially there was gameplay that was getting taken down and stuff, and then now it seems like it's just still out there on the internet. Hell, I've even seen David Serland literally replying to tweets about the leaks, and he isn't saying like, oh, stop talking about it. He's just discussing it with people. So it seems like they don't really care. That actually makes me wonder too if they will potentially remove the NDA moving forward, and this will just be an open thing where people can actually post gameplay or not. I'm not too sure, and I doubt that will probably be the case, but if they're going to leave leaks up and stuff, then honestly they kind of may as well do that. Now, last but not least, there is also a new event for Battlefield 2042 starting this week. It is called War Machine, and it starts on March 18th. Now, I'm going to show some of the trailer in the background. It looked pretty damn interesting, I'm not going to lie. It still looked like 2042, so it's not like I'm going to be sinking 100 hours into this, to be honest, but I might actually jump back on and give it a try. There is a King of the Hill mode that is involved, and I'm a huge King of the Hill fan in pretty much any other shooter, so I'm very interested in that. It also seems like it's coming with a new like battle pass, essentially a new mini battle pass and some new content and stuff in there. It seems we're getting the AN94 in All Out Warfare and stuff, so it's kind of strange that they're still updating the game like this, even though the seasons themselves have actually ended, but now we're getting like events like this. Personally, I find that a little bit strange, just because like the game is meant to be not supported necessarily any longer. Obviously they're going to still support it and maintain it, but like as far as I was aware, support is ended for this game, and now they're still doing events and stuff. So it's a little bit strange. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just like confusing a little bit. And personally, I would prefer just get all of those people working on the next game. I don't think most people care about 2042. Even those of you who are still playing it like daily, I feel like even those people would prefer for everyone to be on the next team so that we get a good experience in the next Battlefield. So that's really my only complaint with it, but hey, it's still new content, so I don't think we can really complain about that, and it did look pretty interesting. So if you guys want to see any coverage from me on that, if you want to see some like maybe live commentaries of King of the Hill or just breaking down the new content and stuff like that, be sure to let me know down in the comment section. I'll most likely go and play it for a little bit anyway, and so if you guys want to see content on that, then yeah, be sure to let me know down below. But that is it for another episode of This Week in Battlefield. Like I said too, guys, if you want to see these pushed back a day so that I can maybe fit some of the more relevant news in, let me know. Or if you'd actually prefer it to be the way that it is, where it's more of a recap of what has happened in the previous week, then yeah, let me know down below. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.